Coogs house. The bucket has been kicked, and I'm telling you, that's a good thing.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs, daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. Whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Coogs your first listen of the day. Appreciate you making it your first listen each and every day. If you want to join the conversation but don't know what to say, tell us in the comments down below your favorite memory of Houston and Rice, because those memories maybe might become just that, memories. Now, we got a lot of things to get into today. I want to update folks on what's going on in Paris, the Cougs. Good stuff, I promise. I want to talk some about the non-conference hoop schedule that is out, because some exciting stuff on that. And I think it's kind of getting undervalued as far as how talented the schedule is. But first and foremost, we're going to talk about the news of the day on Monday, and that is that the Bayou Bucket is getting kicked. Now, in January, they had formally announced that they'd renew the Houston and Rice rivalry game, the Bayou Bucket, in 2024 and 2025. They kind of informally announced it without any actual dates scheduled and set up as far back as September 23 and talk about extending it through 2027. But the first place I see it being reported on Monday is FBSschedules.com. Information from a couple of folks that they've been sent schedules and scheduling information that indicated 2024 is the final matchup between Houston and Rice in the immediate future, in the scheduled future. Shortly thereafter, just Duarte solidified the reports. He also, for what it's worth, commented before FBS schedules had it that Houston would be playing Stephen of Austin in 2025. Now, here's the deal. In the Big 12, there are kind of unofficial, but also very official scheduling rules you have to follow, right? You get 3 non-conference games as a member of the Big 12. They don't quite require, but kind of soft require those to be a Power 4, it used to be Power 5 school, a Group of 5 school, and an FCS school. They like for all the schools to have that to the best of their ability. That way you can have a level playing field as far as strength of schedule goes, right? No one's loading up and then saying, well, this conference is holding us back or vice versa, right? It also theoretically levels the, development of your team in the non-conference before you get into conference play and so on. And it still opens up that potential Group of 5 rivalry game or whatever, right? Now, Houston is going into 2024 as a third consecutive year without playing an official FCS opponent. In the American, they had 4 non-conference games in 2022. They played UTSA and Rice, and then 2 Big 12 schools in Texas Tech and Kansas. And they should have beat Tech, right? Those theoretically are harder games, right? UTSA and Rice, not technically FCS schools, right? In 2023, right, they played UTSA, Sam Houston State, and Rice as their non-conference. Got out of the power thing in their first year in the Big 12 because they had scheduling conflicts. So they needed to play those schools, Rice, UTSA, and Sam Houston, based on previous contracts, right? And Big 12 let them out of having to play a power school in 2023. First year in the conference, right? You got to deal with what you got to deal with to get in. Sam Houston State, should point out, did just move up, right, very recently from the FCS level, but not an FCS school. UTSA was projected to be a very strong Group of 5 school. And Rice actually did ultimately beat Houston in 2023, right? We're going to talk about it and litigate that. And moving quickly through the facts here, 2024, Houston is set up to play UNLV, good Group of 5 program, at Oklahoma, big challenge. I think they're up for it. Talk about that as we get closer. And then with Rice. And that is 2 Group of 5 programs and 1 Power 4 program. And while down the road they have SFA on the schedule, Oregon State on the schedule in the near future, Georgia Southern, they added a Prairie View game, home and home, it looks like. Prairie View is coming to Houston 2027. Same year that they play LSU. The home and home is with Georgia Southern. 2028, they have UNLV, Sam Houston, Oklahoma becoming a Houston that time around. and building out these schedules, right? Adding Rice in each year would be a hindrance, right? It keeps you from getting things like your home and homes with UNLVs or your FCS schools like the Georgia Southern and the Prairie Views coming to town. It keeps those from happening because it occupies a week on the calendar, takes up one of your 3 non-conference slots, right? And you have to either opt out of the FCS game, right, or opt out of a different group of 5 opponents that opens up a number of different that reach your program. Frankly, you're talking about wanting to add more talented teams. Again, I know Rice beat Houston in 2023, but that's not really the point. That was by a lot of bars and measures an upset, right? You're hoping to expand into other parts of the country. UNLV is a strong program, right? You're hoping to find ways to continue to add those kinds of people on your schedule. You're also hoping to get into different parts of the state. You're talking Rice, like you're in town. That doesn't apart you. Like you hope just being Houston, you can pull in those kinds of recruits as this program with Willie Fritz hopes to grow, right? We talked about when he was at Big 12 Media Days, he doesn't want to have to take a plane to recruit folks, right? So you can get the big program like UNLV as far as Group 5 programs go on your schedule. But you can also add the SFAs of the world, the UTSAs of the world, et cetera, because then you're saying, hey, we'll be playing in Houston. We'll also get this home and home with your insert school, right? I also think that there's a football reason to make sure you're playing your FCS schools every year. I know that I think fans don't want cupcakes. Fans want to see you play the best, et cetera. And I frankly really understand that. As an analyst and people trying to analyze these games, like how much can you really draw from blowout of a team they're supposed to beat, right? But functionally, the coach in me, again, Houston-born teacher and coach in my coaching days, these are like get right type of glorified scrimmage games. And most power conference teams and programs have them on their schedule somewhere, right? A game that you're supposed to win no matter who's out there. I'm not saying there aren't upsets that happen, right? Everyone remembers App State over Michigan, however many years ago that's been now. These things do happen, but the goal is to have games where you can get better what you need to get better at, stay healthy, practice as a live opponent, right? Those kinds of things. Because you don't have, like, in the NFL, you have preseason games and practices with one another. You don't really get those in college football. That's what this FCS non-conference game is. And for what it's worth, the Big 12 is asking you to do it in your non-conference games. Most teams do it at the start of the season. SEC and Big Ten do the same kind of things. And the SEC, most of those schools are scheduling that game in the latter portion of their season, right? There's like a week in like mid-November where all of a sudden you'll see like Alabama playing South Alabama Tech and stuff like these random matchups happening. So I think someone always gets Mercer, right? Like these random big SEC matchups happening for schools like in the title hunt. That's when they do it, right? The Big 12 does it earlier, which is fine. But I'm just trying to stress that everyone is doing this at the Power 5 level. And while Houston folks might be like, no, the whole point is to be playing like big top tier talent. Why do we have to play the FCS schools? We have to kick the Bayou Bucket to do it. It functionally opens up so many more options to not have this game on the schedule. And it hopefully makes you better prepared for the games you have on the schedule that are more difficult to win in the first place. The last thing I'll say about kicking the bucket and why it's worth doing that game as opposed to, trying to, have that be your group of 5 game is that functionally, again, I know they lost the game in 2023. The Rice rivalry wasn't that strong of a rivalry on the football field. Houston won 33 of the 45 matchups. Rice's big win in 2023 broke a streak of 7 consecutive wins to the University of Houston. And we've also seen at different points in the past when Houston and Rice are in different conferences, they have had years that are gaps in this scheduling, right? This is not necessarily uncommon. And so while I like to think about the times that Case Keenum threw 1,000 touchdowns against Rice or whatever it was that one time, instead of the times like 2023 where Houston had a bad first half and couldn't overcome it, I do think that on the whole, that like 33-12 margin of like Winspedia victories for Houston is why this is going to go by the wayside. It doesn't bring in a whole lot of money, right? It's not a rivalry where Rice fans are shown to a bunch of football games. It doesn't bring in a whole bunch of recruiting. You're trying to already win Houston just by being the University of Houston, and you can go get better caliber opponents for that game and have your FCS game be your get right game. All those things fit together, I think, make this an easy decision for Houston, even if it means giving up for the near future a trophy game. Now, I'm sure you think I'm wrong. I'm sure you think Parker has no idea what he's talking about, but I think this makes the most sense for the university, even though I hate the idea of Rice having won in 2023 of 2024 as the last year. It does put a lot of pressure on that 2024 game for a rebuilding Willie Fritz team. Now, I think this is a great group of guys on the coaching staff that get this team in the right direction. I think this program is going to be really, really strong, and I think they're going to upset some people and surprise some people throughout the season. I do think, however, though, that there are going to be speed bumps along the way and that year one could be challenging. I don't know if it'd be Rice challenging, but we'll know a lot more come September. Now, that's not the only program that had scheduling news on Monday. But before we get to the schedule, talk about games that Houston needs to win. And if you're trying to win these days, the best place to go do that is FanDuel.com, because we all love winning, and FanDuel makes it much more interesting and exciting to go out and win things, right? I love sports, you all love sports, but this summer, with sports happening at all kinds of weird times, different times of the day, FanDuel is making sure they're hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. Actually, there's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer today. Trust me, I know the Astros just had a bad night against the Arlington folks, but trust me, find them on FanDuel. FanDuel's got great odds each and every day and all kinds of daily bonuses and boosts. So go check out FanDuel.com. This is a sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, now, Houston also officially, formally released their non-conference basketball schedule. Now, I think it's interesting to look at this because the Houston basketball program, unlike the football program is rebuilding. The basketball program is well established as a strong perennial program, right? This is not something that we're worried about how this is going to affect our ranking, as much as we want to make sure we're ready for the gauntlet that is Big 12 play. Houston's released the schedule, and they open with Jacksonville State on November 4th. They play Auburn at Toyota Center on November 9th. They have a couple of home games against the Raging Cajuns of Louisiana and against Hofstra, both in November. And then over the week of Thanksgiving, the end of November, they head to Las Vegas for the Players Era Tournament. Well, no, they'll at least play Alabama. They could also potentially play ranked preseason teams on the 45 list of Rothstein. You got Rutgers, A&M, Notre Dame, a handful of other powerful programs in that tournament. That's a big NIL deal. We've talked about a couple different times on this, but that's a big NIL deal for Houston and a great tournament to add in that window where everyone's playing non-conference tournaments. Houston returns from Vegas, and their first game back is December 7th against Butler. That's their Big 12, Big East showdown matchup. That game is in Fertitta on December 7th. They then have Troy, Toledo, and the Islanders of, I think that's A&M Corpus Christi. And I look at all that, and I think a lot of people say, oh, yeah, Troy, real tough, Parker. And I think that there's a couple things to balance here. One, they've got Auburn coming to Toyota. Auburn's been a tournament team the last couple of years, and obviously locked on Auburn, and Zach Blackerby will tell you more themselves, and we'll hopefully get a crossover before that happens. But Auburn is looking at what might be one of their best teams in the last decade, if not longer, and that includes the year they had Jabari Smith, right? This is the kind of team at Auburn. They put together a big recruiting class coming in, combined with big transfer portal class, and this is just Zach and I texting back and forth. They think this is a big-time team. That's a big test for them early, big test for Houston early. But that's the kind of win in early November that you could look back on in February, man, I can't believe Houston did that to them, right? It is Toyota. It is technically a neutral site. As you saw last year with A&M in the what was the Halal guys game. I remember in that game, like it was Toyota, but it did feel like a split crowd. Now A&M's different than Auburn; it's much closer, etc. But like, there's a real chance that has a neutral court feel, even though it is in Houston, because Toyota is so big. And honestly, if you're living in Auburn, Alabama, why wouldn't you travel to Houston? Then also the factor in that Auburn's a private school and people live all over. They go, right? So tough game out the gates at Auburn. Then you have the other scheduled game being Butler. You know every year that you're going to get a Big East matchup in your non-conference schedule. You can't tell if it's going to be UConn or Butler or whomever, right? There's a chance you get, UConn, Marquette, the top seeds in the tournament, or a Butler that's like not necessarily the Butler of Gordon Hayward's days, but not a bad team either, right? So you schedule assuming that could be potentially anyone in the Big East, and you hope that the conference committees can line you where you're one of the stronger teams. Like Houston looks like getting with Butler. It's not going to be like Kansas, UConn or something. I don't know who the other teams have actually, but what you're hoping is that, that game when you're setting your schedule is going to be another game that's big for you. Butler's a good game for Houston. It's a very winnable game, but it's also not like a bad team by any stretch or measure. It should be another tournament team. Then the unscheduled or not for sure games are the ones in Las Vegas. We know Houston opens the Players Invitational Tournament with Alabama. Alabama was a Final Four team last year, right? That's as good a game on your resume as anyone could have, right? That's, before you get to the rest of that tournament, a really strong 3 games in the non-conference before you get into the gauntlet that is Big 12 play. And that's normal for the Big 12. I think a lot of people compare Houston and Kansas because they're both really, strong basketball programs at the present time. And both, frankly, Kansas is the blue blood. Houston's beating down the door to try and get to the next level and be a blue blood. They're very comparable programs in the present tense for sure. But outside of Kansas, Houston's going to have more challenging schedule as most teams in the Big 12. Most Big 12 teams spend their non-conference getting ready and staying healthy for the gauntlet that is the conference. And yes, that kept Oklahoma out of the NCAA tournament last year, but it's just the reality of being in the Big 12, right? People say, well, look at Kentucky, North Carolina, look at UCLA, and they point to these big historical blue blood programs. But the other part of that equation is they got a lot of big TV games, frankly, a lot of times against one another once they'd established themselves. That's why when we say Houston needs to continue to beat down the door and prove they are that caliber of program, because you and I both think they are, right? Once they get to that point, they'll get those invitations as well. The big thing I've been harping on is obviously the NIL Classic. This Players Invitational thing is great. Players Era Invitational thing is great. The other tournament I would look at Houston potentially getting in is this Jordan Brand Classic matchups where a bunch of Jordan schools are playing one another. Most Jordan Brand schools are good at basketball. Houston, as a Jordan Brand school, has not been, odd number of schools. Someone gets loved that Houston hasn't been in it, but you could get potentially a UCLA or a Michigan or a Florida, North Carolina, whomever. You also might just draw Georgetown, and they're not very good right now, right? But that is the only other thing I'd see adding to the schedule. Realistically, this is a schedule that has, again, recent Final Four caliber talent in Alabama, right? A team like Auburn, I'm telling you, in February, it's going to look like a good win, right? Butler's a good Big East team. You have these core staples in the schedule. And you also spend a lot of December with Troy Toledo and getting ready to go play in the Big 12 and have last year's Big 12 was good, and you added Arizona. You added Utah, right? Like, this is going to be a challenging season. Not just because the exit is Jamal Shedd. I know Houston returns a ton of talent, and I'm telling you, you're going to like Milo Suzan too. Like, they're going to be really good. You want to be healthy, you're going to be strong, you're going to be playing your best basketball at the end of December when you transition into Big 12 play, and then playing better basketball than that when you get into March, right? We saw last year that the truth is the only thing that beat Houston was their own health. This is a schedule set to have tests, to have showcase, and to have things that will help us know how good this team is and help the nation know how good this team is, while hopefully also having spots to preserve that health that, frankly, has gotten in Houston's way for about 3 years in a row. And whenever Houston knocks on the door, and I think it could be this year, right? We'll get to Houston basketball talk when it's basketball season. Whenever Houston knocks down that door, the difference is going to be they stayed healthy. They kept everyone off the IR. There was no shed ankles. There was no Marcus Sasser groins. There were no shoulder injuries. That's going to be the big thing. And I'm telling you, the schedule sets up in a way that could help that out. Now, that's all future. We talk about future football, future basketball. In the present tense, there are Houston Cougars right now in Paris. Frankly, when you're listening to this, they might be competing as we speak, representing, yes, their country, but also the University of Houston. I want to talk about what they're doing, how they're doing, and what you can look out for from them in a moment. But first, I got to tell you, first of all, I should point out, like, buying a house gets expensive, but you don't think it's expensive. All the little things you're doing as you're filling the house. The extra space means you need an extra chair here. The extra kitchen storage means you need extra like things to store stuff in that cabinet. And whenever you're buying all those things, the place you got to be buying those things on is using the Eboda app. Now, the average Eboda user earns $256 back per year. That could be the cost of an entire shopping trip. The flight you've been eyeing to get out of town, the fancy dinner for you and your day, wherever you're going, the Eboda app is going to make sure you're getting money back in your pocket to go do the things you want to be doing. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Eboda, you can earn cash back that you can withdraw to your bank account, PayPal, or gift card. Simply add offers in the app, upload your receipt, and voila, the money is yours. Right now, Eboda is offering customers $5 just for trying it and using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. So go to the App Store, Google Play Store, and download the free Eboda app. Start earning cash back and using it today. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. All right, the other thing I'll say about my summer is not only looking at new houses and all those kinds of things, I also need to rein the eating back. It's been fun summer eating, out and about, doing all kinds of things. And warmer summer, sunnier days are calling. Like to get out to the pool a little bit more before the summer's over. And to do that with Factor's no prep, no mess meals is going to make me the best me for that stretch. Make today the day you kickstart your new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? Factor's got 35 different meals with over 60 different add-ons to choose from every week. You'll have all kinds of new flavors to explore. Make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert. Stay fueled up with easy and nutritious options. Enjoy an effortless support for your lifestyle. Enjoy 6 different menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or whatever you need to do to keep yourself looking and feeling the best you can feel. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off the next month. That's LockedOnCollege50 is the code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50. Get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. All right, so in looking at the Olympics, I should point out a couple things. One, it is crazy that there are as many Cougars in the Olympics as there are. Obviously, Big 12 schools have a little bit more, and Houston just got in the Big 12, but like Louie Hinchliffe is holding it down, to say the very least. I want to talk a little bit about in order, but Louie kind of set off a lot of people by beating Noah Lyles in the first heat of the 100-meter dash. They were in the same heat. They obviously all qualified. He and Shaun Masawanganyi and Noah Lyles were all 1, 2, 3 in their heat in the first round of the 100-meter dash. Then in the semifinals, Louie Hinchliffe ran a 9.97, so his third consecutive big-time run, or I guess third consecutive like important big-time like medal kind of run, under 10. And so he didn't finish in the first or second in his semifinal heat. Had to wait for the other semifinal heats to conclude before understanding that he missed the final. All the final ran a 9.91 or faster in the final. But it is worth mentioning, and I want to stress that in most of the last handful of Olympics, a 9.97 in the semis would have qualified Louie Hinchliffe for the finals, right? Now, that's a long way off of winning a gold, and we all think about the 100-meter dash and how close that race was and whatever. But Louie was close to being in the same caliber race as those guys, and he's just a sophomore. Right? He's got 2 more years eligibility at the U of H. He's just 22. I think there's a real shot at seeing him again with even better times, a little bit more technique work and the kind of things you get with more time on task, obviously a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, etc. I think there's no reason he can't be a dominant force for Great Britain and the University of Houston in 2028 in the LA Games, right? Now, he still has the 4x100 meter relay with Great Britain. They have other strong runners. He's actually kind of their horse guy. So we'll see how that goes for them. If they keep it up with as they did in Europe, he'll actually be the anchor of that. So we'll see what they go with for him. I mentioned that Shaun Masawanganyi also moved on to the semifinals. His semifinal didn't go quite as well. He finished at 10:02, fifth in that heat. He then went and ran a 20.2 in the 200-meter dash, which gets him into the semifinals on Tuesday. Actually, by the time you're listening to this, it might have already happened. If not, go check out the Peacock app or something to go see that. He's also, for his worth, on South Africa's 4x100 team as well. So watch the 4x100 series of the first heats of that. You're going to see Louie and Shaun both. As far as the girls' side of things, staying on the track, Cecilia Tomaya Garza didn't get out of the heat in her 100-meter dash, so finished 55th overall. And then she finished 7th in her 200-meter heat. And then in the rip change, where you can see if you can qualify after the fact in the 200, she did not qualify for the finals in 200, but she did obviously represent University of Houston very well, ran pretty strong times relative to other collegiate runners in that. Tristan Evelyn of Barbados finished 45th overall with 11.11.5, with an 11.55 in the 100-meter dash. Alondra Ortiz finished at 2:18 in the 200-meter butterfly. Didn't get out of her heat again, but also that's again a very respectable college time. And Elizabeth Jimenez Garrido, 1:04 minute 04 in the 100 backstroke. Didn't get out of her heat as well. So again, if you're into checking times, they're all very comparable to high-end college times. They're still the same Houston Cougar competitors that we know and love. However, only Louie and Shaun thus far have really exceeded in getting out of their heats, really excelled or exceed expectations, getting out of their heats and into the next part. And frankly, they still have running left to do. Track is a big part of the second week. And so we'll see how those 4x100s go. We'll see if Shaun can keep on going through the 200-meter dash as well. Lots going on with the Cougs in Paris. Frankly, one potential future Cougar coming back from Paris. We'll talk about that in the next episode. We also, at some point, we'll get told who the new athletic director is. We're waiting to hear on that. Don't have a whole lot more information anyone else at home would have on that. We're still waiting to hear on that. But working on getting stuff ready to be ready when that news drops, when those things get made and decided, to tell you the latest each and every day here at Locked On Cougs. Make sure to subscribe, hit the bell so you know we're live, and make Locked On Cougs your first to listen each and every day. If you want more Big 12 news or anything going on with the Big 12 conference, the Houston Cougars are now in. Make sure to check out Locked On Big 12 for your second listen of the day. Locked On Big 12 does a great job of checking out who's in the conference, who's out of the conference, what the other biggest storylines are going on in the conference. Make sure to check out Drake over at Locked On Big 12. Locked On Cougars is a prime member of the Locked On Podcast Network. Means your team are Houston Cougars each and every day. Go Cougs.